Okay, so chapter 8, y'all, we're getting into the new covenant, which, listen, I had to like contain myself not to go like super crazy. And so I'm setting my alarm for 5 minutes just so we can try to keep it so it's not 30 minutes long. All right, so here we go. So, first and foremost, before we jump into chapter 8, I think it's important that we understand the old covenant to appreciate the new covenant. And so, just a few contrasts with the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament was full of rules that were really hard to keep. One had to earn forgiveness. There was limited access to God, so you didn't have like a real personal relationship like we have now with Him. And the old covenant was only available to some, not all. Not everybody was able to come into covenant with God. And so when you look at the new covenant is full of grace and mercy, y'all. So much grace, so much mercy. I know we can all attest to that. Forgiveness is freely given. We have unlimited access to God. Now, I don't know how many of us are truly utilizing this unlimited access, but we have unlimited access because of Jesus. Okay, and we're gonna go deeper in that later on in this chapter. And then anyone can be a part of God's family. You know, it's for Jew and Gentile. You know, free and slave. It is for anybody. Literally anybody can be saved. So when I looked at the word covenant, even though I know what a covenant is, I wanted to see, Lord, what do you say about this word? And so I went to Strong's 1242, and it is dee-ath-ay is the Greek word for it, and it means testament, will, a covenant between two parties. So the official definition is a set agreement having complete terms determined by the initiating party, okay, which also are fully affirmed by the one entering the agreement. Okay, and so specifically to this chapter, it is the divine promise that Christ has made, aka the blood covenant, the blood of the new covenant. This new covenant binds men to exercise faith in Christ, and God promises them grace and salvation, eternal. So this covenant that Christ set up and ratified by undergoing death, um, is the covenant that we have. This, and so it made me think when I was reading the definition of a binding legal document, um, a contract, if you will, that we receive once a spiritual contract that we sign once we receive salvation. And so the verse that came to me was Galatians 4, 4 through 7. And so it says, "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoptions as sons. And because you are sons, God has sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a son, then an heir through God." And so, just like a natural adoption, when natural adoption takes place, there are legal documents, and the parent is the initiator. They initiate, saying, "I want this child. I want this kid." It's something that this kid has done. It's nothing that this kid even deserves, but it is what the parents want to do. They want to claim the child as their own. And so once we become sons and daughters of God, no one can terminate that. We belong to Him and not the world. And so I looked at it, made me think of this. Born into iniquity, as the psalmist David said, we were born into iniquity. Our parents were the world. That was what we were born into. Those are our birth parents, if you will. God comes along, and if you ever get a chance to read Ezekiel 16, that is probably one of my favorite verses, hands down, of an illustration of what it looks like when God comes and rescues His children. So anyway, that's a whole nother thing. And so the world, that was our birth parents, and then God comes and says, "No, I want to adopt. I want to adopt this child. I want to adopt this young man. I want to adopt this girl and let her be my daughter." And it's like now that I'm yours, I'm no longer bound to sin. I'm no longer sin does not have its name on me. The world doesn't have its name on me. The devil doesn't have a claim to me. And so that's how it made me think. It made me think in those ways. And so when we deep dive into chapter 8, the author also makes a point that Jesus connects us to God, sitting in the true sanctuary in heaven, made with the Lord's hands, not man's hands, always interceding on our behalf. Whereas the high priest of the old covenant had to offer gifts and sacrifices for themselves. Jesus did too, but the gift that Jesus gave and the sacrifice that he gave was one that nobody could top. It was selfless. It was guiltless. He was perfect when he died, and so it was just one time that he had to shed his blood. It wasn't. He didn't have to keep working in a goat and ram and all these random animals. He was the final sacrifice, and thank God for that. Because I mean, we were out here slaughtering animals, just killing them for our sin, and so Moses. Was only a type and shadow of heaven's blueprint. Jesus remains in the temple without break, constantly mediating between God and us, um, which is way better than the Old Testament. Okay, the forgiveness of sin on a yearly basis. Listen, baby, I need it second by second, moment by moment. I'm constantly making sure that I'm in right standing with the Lord. If something comes up, I'm like, let me pause what I'm doing and just center myself. Lord, forgive me for X, Y, and Z, or having this thought, or doing X, Y, and Z, whatever that looks like. So I can't even imagine a yearly, which is probably why so many animals got killed. Because how do you keep up with all those things? I don't know. I have no clue. But Jesus' death has been applied to our sin forever, 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 ever, forever, ever. Okay, forever. So the author drops down to Jeremiah 31 and begins to recite Jeremiah 31. And I think Isaiah might be a little bit in there too, but I know mostly it's Jeremiah 31. And he repeats this to demonstrate that Jesus was always the way. He would reunite his creation to himself. Jesus was always going to be the way. Grateful for Moses, grateful for the people that came, but Jesus was always going to be the one. And so it goes into describe our terms. And y'all, as I was going over these terms, shout out to Through the Word. I was listening to Through the Word after I read this and kind of took my own notes in. It was just, I love Through the Word. Shout out to Chris Langham. They just always have good stuff. And so as he started going through the terms of the covenant, the first thing that he mentioned was God will impart his word unto our hearts and minds, meaning it'll be more than us just trying to follow rules, because that doesn't work. We saw that in the Old Testament. It literally was just to show that we needed a savior. With him imparting his words on our heart, in the spirit of God moving through us and working through us, we will delight in doing the will of God. It won't be feel like a task. It'll be it will give us joy. It'll be a glory to do his will, to walk in his way, to walk in righteousness. And so he'll be ours and we'll be his. And I think that's such a beautiful connection, that a sinner like me, God says that that's mine. Knowing all the things that I've thought, knowing all the things that I've done, will do all the things, and yet still saying that I have my name on her, or I have my name on him. That's mine. And so I don't know. That just made my little heart like. And so then the second thing was we no longer have to rely on others to have a relationship with God, which, y'all, this is amazing to me. If you look at the Old Testament, like I said, there's always a mediator. So you had Moses, Aaron, you had people like Samuel, and a lot of other people that were used to hear the heart of God and then have to relay it. And so the people never really got to know God for themselves. In the way that we get to. We have a gift that I'm sure the Old Testament would probably break our necks for, to be able to have the holy, living God living inside of us, helping us to walk in in the way that he desires for us to walk. You know what I mean? And so then you get to 3, and then the fact that God has forgiven us, knowing, like I said, the filth, the things that we have done, we will do, we are forgiven always. We never have to be a slave to the world of sin again, because of our covenant, because we are married to the Lord. You know, we are adopted. We're adopted. And so Jesus makes us white as snow and worthy to stand in the presence of God. And this is the new glorious covenant that we enter into when we receive salvation. And so it made me think about when I was at the Sin back in 2019, right before COVID broke out. I was at the Sin. I'm from Orlando, Florida, and so they came, and Francis Shane was actually there at the church, and I was kind of fangirling just a little bit. I love Francis Shane. I love his spirit. He reminds me of John the Baptist. But yeah, he reminds me of John the Baptist and a little bit of John the Beloved, in the way that he is very reverent towards the word, very just like, I love the way that he takes what God says and what he does, and he's very transparent. And so he talks about how he gets on stage and he talks about how backstage he was kind of like, okay, God, like, what am I saying? What am I doing? What am I telling the people? And the Lord had to let him know, like, you're not their Moses. And he was like the Lord gave it to him, and he was like, so he came out and was like, I'm not your Moses. Like, you, the veil was torn. You can go and intercede for yourself. You can go and talk to the Lord for yourself. And so I love that, because I think there's so many people, especially now, there's a lot of baby Christians in the faith that they rely heavily on a prophetic word. They rely heavily on the pastor. They rely heavily, sister, can you pray for me? Brother, can you, all these different things. And don't get me wrong, we are definitely here to bear one another's burdens. We're here to love on one another, for sure. Absolutely, 100%. But when you start relying so heavily on this person and that person, and you don't actually have a relationship with the Lord, that is very dangerous. And because of that, I truly believe that is part of the falling away, because you never really know the Lord for yourself. And so I just want to pray with you guys. I pray that whatever you're walking through, whatever you're battling, if you have backslid, that God will call you back, that the Spirit of God will touch you now, bring you to your knees, bring you to the end of yourself like the prodigal son, and that you would return and take one step at a time. Listen, it's not a rush. It's a race, but it's not that kind of a race. You are in your own lane. If you have fallen off, there is time. We don't know how much time, but you're alive today. So make the decision today. Ask God to forgive you. Ask God to cleanse you, and ask the Lord to show you how to walk right with you, how to bear. Lord, how do I bear fruit? What does that look like? How do I spend time and get to know you? And I can tell you one thing: reading the Word does wonders. When you read the Word, and I even having commentaries, like one of my favorite commentaries when I stepped out of legalism, I also worked at a bookstore, so that helped because I was always around Christian books and different things like that. Warren Wiersbe's commentaries helped me so much. I mean, I still use them. They helped me so much to understand what I was reading, and how to apply it and how to discern, and ask God to for the spirit of discernment, for wisdom. Lord, as I'm reading this, help me to understand what you're saying. How do I apply this to my life so that I can live a life that is worthy of your name? That is bearing fruit, that is glorifying you, that is magnifying you, and pointing the world back to our God is living. He's not dead. He is very active. I pray, guys. We are in some very interesting times, and like I keep saying, we are definitely at the end of the times. Jesus is coming back soon, and people think it's a game. It is not a game. He continues to I keep seeing the same words over and over again, and it's the personal word that he gave to me as well. Tell them that I'm coming back soon, sooner than they know. And so we don't have time to play. We don't have time to be caught up in the things that they don't matter. They're going to burn up. They are going to burn up. So we'll move on to chapters 9 through 13 next week. And I'll probably just chunk those. I won't get like, I don't know how detailed I'll get because I know a lot of the theme is kind of tied together. So I'll probably be able to string all of that together. So yeah, I love you guys. Again, the hoodie will be on sale. I'm so excited. It feels amazing. It's 46 degrees. All I have is a cami underneath. I just want to see how well it would hold. And even with the wind, all the things, it has kept me super warm. So look out for that. That'll be on sale. I'll be doing some new art. I've been working on some things. And yeah, so I'm excited. You guys, I love you guys. I'm praying for you guys, and share this with somebody to encourage them. Share this with, even if it's just a prayer, share this with somebody who is in need of some encouragement. Okay, I will talk to you guys. I'll see you guys next week.